Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Welcome, everybody, to the Better on Draft podcast, episode 286. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. We have a great show for you today. As we are running into some technical issues, I believe a couple other hosts will be joining us. But right now, I got my trusty friend, Dan. Dan, what are you drinking over there?
I am double fisting today. I've got, of all things, a Dos Equis Ranch Water Lime Hard Seltzer. And then I've got Temporary Residence. I'm assuming we're talking about snowbirds here. This is a collaboration between Wiley Roots and Wren House.
Oh, well, of course you're going to pick the Arizona beer for sure, or the Arizona collaboration beer. Myself, as Wendy is trying to get into the show, I am drinking, folks, it's been almost 7 months since I've had a beer on the show, but I've got beer-flavored beer, as well as barrel-aged mean beans from Wiley Roots. Wendy, what are you drinking?
I'm also drinking Wiley Roots. I have a bourbon barrel-aged midnight, which just poured fantastic. Oh, man, I cannot wait to drink this. And a County Fair Cobbler, the strawberry chocolate cheesecake.
Well, a little bit of everything from the brewery Wiley Roots, so why don't we bring them in? Kyle and Miranda from Wiley Roots. Why don't you introduce yourselves, tell us what you guys do there, and give us a 1 minute elevator pitch of what Wiley Roots is.
Sounds great. I'm going to let Miranda go first. So ladies first.
I'm Miranda Carbaugh. I'm the Chief Operations Officer and VP of Sales. So I do just kind of logistics and operations for just all of the products that we create, and then just do all of our sales. So with the different states that we distribute in, I work with the distributors and allocating product and selling the product.
Yeah. I'm Kyle Carbaugh, and I am the head janitor here at Wiley Roots. So I try to get a little bit of brew deck time, but we do have a lead brewer now that heads up a lot of our work production, and a few guys in the cellar to help us get it from the brew deck into a can, obviously with time inclusive. So I kind of head up the orchestration of that circus. And then when anything goes wrong, I just figure out what we need to do to make it work. So seems to happen more and more frequently these days.
Well, before we continue, let me just bring in Nick. Nick, what do you got over there beer-wise?
I'm sure we know who our guests are, but I am drinking a Wiley Roots Zodiac Pisces. I just cracked it open.
Awesome. So I appreciate you guys joining us out in Greely, Colorado. So my first question to you guys is, you guys opened in 2013. Why Greely?
That is a great question. So at the time when we both started thinking about, okay, well, let's start thinking about creating a brewery and how is that going to look? And, at the time I was working a corporate job actually in Denver. Miranda was working for CU Denver doing human resources and hiring for like the medical campus. And we had originally said, okay, well, we'll start this brewery and Miranda will, keep her day job and help fund the brewery in that sense. And once we find a location, we'll figure it all out from there. And I'll head up the brewery side of things. We wound up in Greely, of all places, because that's where we both went to Denver to university at, and it's actually my hometown. And when we got to that point of like, all right, where are we going to put this thing? We were looking at, do we put it in Denver and be kind of another neighborhood brewery, or do we try to do something different and put a brewery where, we perceive there to be kind of a need for craft breweries. And at that time, there was only one other craft brewery in town. And it's
around 100,000 people.
Yeah.
So from an opportunity standpoint, I think it just made sense.
Yeah. So we came back to the hometown and tried to do something a little different and interesting.
So I was looking at all of your cans, and if you actually go to their Instagram or their website, you guys can see so many different colorful cans for all the beers that they produce. My question is all of your artwork done in-house, or do you search out for local artists? Like, how do you guys come up with these brilliant can work and, can artwork?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's gone through many different iterations from, just me playing around with Photoshop and Illustrator to having a graphic designer, pull off a couple of labels, and then going back to, fully in-house, depending upon, how many needs. So it's gone through a ton of different iterations of how we do it. Currently, I would say 90%?
I'd say 90-10. Yeah, I would say Kyle does 90% of the labels.
Yeah. And then the other 10% of the labels are our Fruit Lady series, and one artist out of Portland actually does that label. And then our Ice Cream Truckz series, and an artist out of Greely does that. And then we've got our Slush brand, which we just announced the rebrand and the new label artwork and the new label direction for that series. We announced that about a week ago, and that's all being done by the same artist as the Fruit Ladies out of Portland. So.
Well, before I pass it to Wendy, because I know Wendy's got a question, I want to talk about this beer. We got beer flavored beer, which is your German style Helles. Now, if you guys ever go, like on Untapped, you guys are an Untapped verified venue. So if you go there, you can see what they're pouring right now. And you'll just see a litany of sours and a litany of different style beers, and not too many beers in the basic yellow beer, which I guess maybe is why you have beer flavored beer as the name of your beer. Talk to me about this beer. What am I tasting in it? And what was the reasoning behind it? And again, beautiful artwork.
Yeah. I think we might be able to point to a main source of inspiration behind some of the imagery on that label. As far as, the inspiration and the intention behind that beer itself, we do these really kind of in your face flavor profile beers, whether it be a sour or an adjunct stout or, hazy IPA or milkshake IPA. We try to hit as many styles as possible just because that's what we're excited about. We're excited about making different stuff, and why constrain yourself to one, one thing. At the end of the day, though, there comes a time and place for every beer. And sometimes you just want to drink a really nice, easy drinking, approachable beer. And that was kind of the intention and genesis behind beer flavored beers. How do we make something that, is still a little bit tongue in cheek? Because a lot of our marketing, a lot of our branding is very tongue in cheek in terms of the names and the imagery. How do we still be a little bit tongue in cheek with that, but still have it be a really nice, easy drinking, just crushable beer? So what you're tasting is, our interpretation of kind of a German style Helles lager. It's got a nice little malt sweetness to it, but not so much so that it's cloying and doesn't finish. It's super crisp, super clean. Just a nice, easy drink and drinkable beer that, I'd call them, lawnmower beers that, if you're out mowing the lawn on a nice hot weekend day, then, it's a good beer to break up, the front yard and the backyard with. So.
I mean, anything's a lawnmower beer. You can ask us if it really comes down to it. I mean, this is 12%. I would drink this. It'll be 100 degrees here this week, and I'll crack that open outside. Who cares? But I wanted to ask you guys, actually, a lot of your beers come in series and sets, from Ice Cream Truckz to a visit from the Fruit Lady, Zodiac, and more. What's the theory behind releasing beers in a series like this?
It's funny you say, so we call them lanes to kind of differentiate variants within that lane. But probably 2 years ago, we started, coming out with, or calling them lanes. So we have probably 15 to 17 different lanes, and then we just keep doing riffs of different beers within those lanes. And so the cobbler, which Wendy's drinking the strawberry chocolate cheesecake, the one that we just released last week, is the pineapple cherry County Fair cobbler. Next month we'll have key lime County Fair cobbler. And so we'll just keep releasing new beers within those lanes. And that's how we're able to come out with more than 130, 40, 50 beers a year.
Yeah. Ultimately, it gives us, a little bit of structure and direction around how we are, communicating and branding, what we make. But it gives us the flexibility and freedom to just absolutely go to party town in terms of different combinations of adjuncts and flavors and spices. It honestly keeps it pretty fresh and interesting, from my brewer perspective.
But yeah, the consumer will still look at that lane and say, okay, I know what to expect from the county fair lane, knowing, okay, it's just a different variant, but there's, it's pie based or, cheesecake based. So there's going to typically be cinnamon, graham cracker, vanilla, things like that.
One of the coolest series that I've seen you guys put out is the game board series with the cans that turned into a game board. What was it like to put that one together?
That one was a lot of fun. It was our Imperial something series. It's our Imperial Stout, Imperial Porter that we release it's usually first part of December that we release that every year. Historically, we've done, between 2 and 4 variants. The year that you're talking about, the game board year, we decided that we needed to do 6 different variants on the same base beer, which was a lot of fun. And also, it was a lot of fun to come up with the idea and a lot of fun to, think through, like, how do we market this game board concept? And so I should pause there and talk about the game board concept that for the 6 different variants of the beer, you could get a mixed 6 package of each of the different variants, the labels peeled off, and you could put them into a case tray. And when you put them together in the right order, it made a game board that ultimately you could basically play with friends and family around the holidays. So it's kind of like a holiday inspired, like, take this to your family gatherings. Everybody can kind of get a beer, and then, everybody can kind of play along, with what we're doing.
There was a cardboard piece where the pawns, you could pop out your own pawn, and they were all brewery themed. So Midnight, our brewery cat, she was one of the players that you could play. And so you'd pop out your piece and then kind of go around the game board.
Yeah. The goal was, you were basically a mailman competing with or mail delivery person, I should say, competing with other delivery people to deliver your package of beer to, everybody and complete your routes, fastest in time and fastest wins. So it was a really fun and interesting concept. We had a great time with it. The problem comes when you have a very short window to produce 6 different variants on beers. And that was a little bit more of a headache. So, but it was a lot of fun. Hopefully people enjoyed it. Did you get a chance to play the board game as well?
Did not. I've just read about it, and it kind of mixes 2 of my most favorite things together, beer and board games. So I loved it. Yeah. I wish I did.
Well, we'll have to do it.
Jealous.
Again.
Well, when we do it again, we know who to send a 6-pack to. So
yeah.
I have a question that this really kind of piqued my interest, because where you guys are located at Denver, the whole area, there's about 150 breweries. When you consider some of the other areas, like LA County only has about 100. We have about 100 here in Arizona. So you do have a lot of competition compared to a lot of major, areas of the country when it comes to beer and brewing. Tell me a little bit about what you guys do or what you think you do that's different or makes your brewery stand out that would make a beer drinker want to come there.
Yeah, that's a really great question, actually. It's something that we continually ask ourselves. What sets us apart? What makes us different? How do we continue to, convince people to, make the trek or even, drive across town to, set foot in the brewery. So I'll let Miranda take a stab at that.
I think from a beer standpoint, my answer would be just creativity. With the number of beers that we release a year, we're usually releasing 3 to 4 new SKUs a week. We're just constantly creating new things and, thinking 2 to 3 months down the line. And yes, trends play into that, but it's just, what do we enjoy drinking? What do we, what can we do to push the boundaries of what beer is, whether it's, this weekend, what is our test run to prepare for slush season. So slush is our fruited sour base. And then we sell those in 4-packs and have it on draft. But 5 years ago, I think we started putting, beer in the slushy machine. And so we offer a couple different variants that are frozen. Last summer was our first year doing beer ice cream. And so we're just trying different things and enjoying that process. And thankfully it's also worked out very, very well. And so I think as a, customer or consumer, that's what somebody is going to get when they make that trek or when they make that drive, is a brewery that is just trying really creative, innovative things while still, coming out with Kyle drinking, "Hi, my name is Lager." Mm-hmm. So that's the other piece too, is even if you separate the product aspect of it, just the names and the labels and the marketing behind it, as well as the taproom experience.
Yeah. And I would say that's really where a lot of my passion lies, is just in creating beers, but also, that secondary aspect of, it's not really enough just to create beer. You have to provide people an awesome experience to enjoy the beer in. Ken, I know you were up in the tap room, and it's recently, I should say, our tap room is definitely not like, tons of bells and whistles, which definitely allows us to kind of keep the amount of spatial sensory input to a minimum, which really means the beer has to do that, fill that void. But it also comes down to, our team behind the bar that if they're providing an excellent hospitality experience, you come away from the tap room saying, wow, that was really interesting beer and a really excellent experience because of the people that are there making it. At the end of the day, our people are definitely an integral component to the special sauce of operating, a brewery tap room.
And I guess I'll add to that the larger that we get, these creative experiments, sometimes they don't pan out. And I don't know if you want to illustrate an example of an experiment that we've tried, and we're not afraid to not release a beer, even if we've put a lot of money and marketing and different things around that release. With that creative aspect, sometimes beers don't turn out.
Sayo had actually mentioned, I believe he is your taproom manager, had actually mentioned about the times that you've had to pour beer, that things that did not hit, and especially when attempting to barrel age, that you guys have had some trials and tribulations while barrel aging beers, how the beer just did not hit the mark you guys wanted it to. And I think, a lot of breweries make the mistake where they just add more adjuncts or do, whatever they can to save the beer. But there comes a point in time where you just can't save the beer. Walk me through that real quick, because I know Wendy has a question, but I want to know real quick. Walk me through how, what's that feeling? How does that feel in your gut, your heart? Does it break your heart? Is it, comfortable knowing that, it didn't hit the mark and it's okay? Obviously the dollars are going out the window, but, you're pride, your ingenuity, your reputation is staying put.
Absolutely. Well, one of the really interesting historical events that took place for us in Wiley Roots, back in 2014, we were actually flooded out. We're located about a quarter mile away from the Cache La Poudre River. And during the spring runoff that year, it was super, super high because of a heavy, snow, high country snow season. And so we actually got flooded out. And as a result, we had to turn off our glycol chiller. We had to turn off our cold room, chilling components, all that kind of stuff. And we had perfectly good beer in fermenters and perfectly good beer in our cold room that we ultimately ended up having to dump. So, what's worse than dumping bad beer? Dumping perfectly okay beer because of things that are out of your control. So, to your point, it's not fun when, you take a chance and you say, all right, I'm going to use this adjunct, or I'm going to go this way with the concept. And it just gets to the finish line. You're like, man, that just did not come to fruition exactly how I wanted it to. Obviously that's, it's not fun. It's not easy. It's definitely, something that we try to limit. But it pales in comparison to having to dump perfectly good beer for reasons that are completely out of your control. So I think maybe having that experience, informs that a little bit more too. So.
Yeah. And COVID would be another example of that, that our tap room was shut down for 9 months. And so, having to dump, 40 some kegs or something like that. So yeah, I think there's a couple different situations and scenarios, whether it's a beer that's just not technically sound, or the beer might, the plan was fine, but it was an experiment and the beer it doesn't meet our expectations. So, a variety of those things could happen.
Well, I think that basically answered the question that I was going to ask when I was like, wait, I need to ask something. But Miranda, I have to ask. So we definitely Facebook and social media stalk all of our guests. And on your LinkedIn, you are listed as the Baroness of Big Picture Planning.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I think that's the most amazing title. I don't know why you don't use it on a regular basis. I'm like, well done. I would totally just ask people to, call me Baroness all the time, something like that. Your Grace, I think is what they call. I don't know.
I think I wanted a fun title after, leaving, having a real job. And so I think, titles are, when we were a lot younger, and those titles really matter. And so I think that getting to create your own title was a lot of fun. And then the more, I started selling beer and, working with banks and different things like that, I had to kind of specify it a little bit more just to actually describe what I do. But thank you. Yes, I have not heard that in a minute. But
so I'm going to take you back a little bit then, because I was also listening to a Wildcast interview that you did back in 2017.
Wow.
And they asked you what you have to say to the newbies that are just starting out in the beer, exploring their beer industry, and not necessarily even just the industry, just beer in general. And I really loved your response, mainly because it's kind of been my philosophy and guiding force in my beer journey. Because you basically said, try everything.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I do. If I can guess, I think it was it in relation to just expanding my palate, not coming from an alcohol background at all?
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering if you still give the same advice 5 years later.
I would, I think, we'll interact with, our staff, of course. And when we have a new hire, different, backgrounds, whether, coming from a beer background or, having minimal experience with beer. I do say that, just try everything. And I'll usually follow it up with your palate will adjust. If you go into an experience open-minded, or at the very least neutral, and just keep trying something. I mean, I'm definitely a testament to that. I didn't have my first beer until I was maybe 25. I came from a background, my family doesn't drink alcohol. And so I had wine really late. I had beer really late, and my very first beer was Chimay Blue or Red?
Chimay Blue.
Chimay Blue. And so, I mean, I was
go home, I guess.
Yeah. And so it just was one of those things where when I'm in my mid-20s when I'm trying alcohol for the first time, and that piece of it of, my palate just, I didn't like anything other than plum wine. And I just kept trying everything. And sure enough, it adjusted. And, probably my favorite adjustment to my palate, when we went to Scotland, to Islay, we're at Lagavulin trying 50-year-old peated scotches. And it just was one of those things was like, yep, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to learn to like it. And I think just going into that experience, wanting to give something a fair chance. There's definitely things I try that doesn't matter how many times I like it or try it, I don't like it, but being open-minded can definitely help.
So do you think that has helped with the amount of styles that you have at your tap room? That philosophy?
Yeah, I think Kyle probably has that mindset organically. And I think, he was a lot further in his beer journey when we, became romantically involved. And, he kind of was showing me beer and alcohol from this romantic standpoint of what beer could be and what wine can be and what, whiskey can be. And yes, it helped that I approached it that way, but I wanted to approach it that way because he naturally does. He will try anything. So my parents would laugh because I was the pickiest eater. So the fact that I say try everything, yeah.
So normally in my questions, I would ask something along the lines of what should a new person look forward to come to your tap room. But I'm actually going to kind of give you a little plug because I was also there just this past November. I came in and I absolutely fell in love with your beer. Like, it was so amazing. Everything we tried was just fantastic. And there was so much variety that all four of us that were there just had something that we could drink and choose from. We actually had to pay the Uber driver extra to stay and wait for us. So
that's not
thank you very much for that. And before I pass it on to Nick, I just want to ask, I'm really curious about the adult Easter egg hunt that you have happening tomorrow and how that came about, because that is like everything that I think we need here.
Yeah, I think, just to put kind of an exclamation point on your experience with our tap room, we really leaned hard into a philosophy and a mantra that, we have a lot of people that come into our tap room that say, "Oh, I don't like beer. No, thank you. I'm okay." And that's absolutely fine for whatever reasons. However, if it is, "Oh, I just don't like the taste of beer," for that reason, what we say is, bring your friends who say they don't like beer. Let's change their mind together. And really that goes to, we just love absolutely converting people and wowing people to saying like, "Oh my gosh, this is beer." It's like, yeah, this is beer. It obviously has maybe a few other things to it and a few other elements to it. But yeah, at the end of the day, like, beer can be so many different things to so many different styles. So, and
it's such an approachable beverage, I would say, in comparison to maybe wine or whiskey, that I would hope that our taproom experience matches that you never know what that person's background is coming into our tap room. And so we strive to, treat our guests with kindness, and let's approach beer from a curious standpoint, not on the end of, well, if you don't like this, or you don't understand this, or you don't know what this is, then, we want that experience to be, this effortless exchange of dialogue and information, and just discovering beer, as opposed to someone telling you this is what beer has to be. And
here's your education. Beer is to you whatever you want it to be. So now on to the topic of the Easter egg hunt. It is something that we have been dying to bring back since pre-COVID days.
Mm-hmm.
This will be the first time that we've done the Easter egg hunt since April of 2019. But effectively what we do is we hide Easter eggs in the tap room and outside. With the purchase of a beer, you get a basket where you can go pick up 5 eggs. We ask that you limit it to 5. Just so that we don't have to go and replenish the entire Easter egg ground after every person goes through.
The beer tender opens the eggs.
And the reason for the beer tender opening the eggs is because there are a lot of, taproom centric goodies in those eggs, whether it be free merch or free pints, or even some super, super special cellar beers.
Yeah.
So you have the chance to get those. You just have to pick the right eggs. So
I might need to make an Easter strip.
And we do have, we hide eggs outside and inside. And the inside tap room, as some of you know, it's not massive, but the patio is pretty large. And that being said, these eggs are not impossible to find. Some of them are very, you just point. And part of it is we have that many participants. So it's not necessarily supposed to be something where you're looking around for hours. It's just supposed to be fun and give out some really cool prizes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Nick, I think you had something.
Yep, I got a pair of questions. I don't like the Facebook, LinkedIn stalk like others, like the others on my my fellow co-hosts here, but I decided to take a stab at it this time. Looking at both of your profiles, you guys came from I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, I'll say, kind of like a corporate background. What was the tipping point for you guys? I know, excuse me. Oh, good Lord. Kyle, you said Miranda, you said Kyle was a little bit further along in his beer journey than you were at the time. What was the tipping point for you guys to say, all right, we want to start a brewery? Or was it, Kyle, were you a little bit further along in the master plan when you two got together?
Yeah, absolutely. When my beer journey and brewing journey, at least, started very much like a lot of people who find themselves currently, brewing beer commercially or owning a brewery. I started as a home brewer, and the reason that I started as a home brewer was because I was working in public accounting, doing like public company audits, financial statement audits. And Miranda said to me, you need to get a hobby because you're working a whole lot of hours. And when you have free time, you need to take advantage of it and something that you enjoy doing. So you need to go get a hobby. And I said, all right, I can do that. And it was home brewing. And the first batch of beer that I made was fantastic. It was absolutely great, which a lot of home brewers can't say. What I can say is that first batch of beer was great. The second batch of beer that I made was absolute garbage, just absolute trash. It was overcarbonated. It was funky. It got infected. It was a whole bunch of, it was just an absolute mess of a beer. And so I said, all right, well, I've made good beer and I've made very, very terrible beer. I want to do more of the former and less of the latter. And, at that point I was like, hey, Miranda, you really got to try this. You really got to try this. And then after the first batch, I was like, no. This doesn't get brought to Miranda at that point, because this is never going to convince her that this is, worthy of me spending my time on it all. and I would say over the course of the next year of just exploring how to continue to make better beer and interesting beer, follow some basic formulas, but then also take some liberties with those formulas. It became clear. It was like, all right, yeah, this could definitely be the path that we go. So I said to Miranda, I think I might want to do this, as a career. I think I might want to open a brewery. At that time, I think your response was, "That's awesome. I'm super excited for you." I don't want to have anything to do with it other than I might help out on the weekends.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I don't know, that was kind of the start of the beer journey, or at least the craft beer journey, and you further solidified that with one of my Christmas presents one year was a journal with a bunch of different breweries mapped out by region, and the challenge that we were going to visit all the breweries in Colorado within a year. And so we started doing that. And I would say in the middle of that's when I was like, all right, we're going to start a brewery. So
my answer probably would not necessarily be beer specific, or I guess I'll choose an answer that's not beer specific. I think it was something that we both, in very, very stable jobs, knew exactly what our life was going to be like for 10 years, for 20 years, for 30 years. And for me, that was boring. I think for everyone has their different levels of, what they want in security in a job and a career. And for me, knowing exactly what my life would be like at 55, I thought I didn't want to do that. And so for me, the appeal of entrepreneurship, sure, I think, personality plays into that a little bit, but the idea of betting on yourself, and when working for yourself, you really can't blame anybody but yourself. And that is both empowering and really, really hard at the same time. And so that is, I think, what is really cool about doing your own thing and owning your own business.
Right. Kyle,
Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually have a quick follow-up question for you. For the home brewing, how did you start? Did you jump right into all grain, or did you start with extract? Because you mentioned the terrible beers. I notice most people start extract brewing, and that's where the terrible beer comes from. I'm curious where you started at.
I did start with extract. I mentioned starting with kind of some predetermined formulas or recipes, and then doing some riffs on that. After the first batch of beer, I was like, yeah, let's add brown sugar to this. And the timing was terrible of when I added the brown sugar. I added it in like secondary fermentation. And then I was like, yeah, give it a week and then bottle it. And it worked really well for a priming agent. So
I'm sure that was a great time. Yeah, I always found that everyone is like, oh, this sucks. My beer comes up, and it's usually something, whether it be throwing sugar into secondary or extract, anything like that. But that's awesome. I was just curious when you were talking about it. Thank you. Nick, you had another one?
Yep, I do. I do have one more. We're going to go back a little bit further. So in 2019, you guys were quoted in one of the many beer news outlets that are out there that both you guys and WeldWorks were looking to go and create 100 different brews a year. Mm-hmm. Miranda, I recall you mentioning that you just put out 3 new SKUs. I heard 3 new SKUs in the last week, or was it every week, or something along those lines?
We usually do 2 to 3 a week.
2 to 3 a week. Okay. Mm-hmm. So taking into consideration, how do you guys manage to keep consistency? How do you work on keeping consistency across all the beers, as well as an ever-changing tap list? And do you find that with a changing tap list and many SKUs that come across every week throughout the course of a year, kind of like, I'm drinking Pisces right now from the Zodiac Series. How do you find that your patrons appreciate and like that changing tap list with as many SKUs that you guys in WeldWorks do?
It's a good question. I definitely think from a taproom perspective, that is to be what is expected. That, if I come in every single week, I could be a regular and I'll never run out of new things to try. And so that to me is the appeal of what we're doing. We have, that being said, we have also sought to come out with a few more core beers a little bit more regularly. I think we have 2 or 3 now, where historically we, at least over the past 2 years, we haven't had anything consistent. Mm-hmm. So I do think there is that desire for some people to want the same thing repeatedly or have something to fall back on. Honestly, it's probably more challenging for the retailers and more from a wholesale perspective, just due to the constant rotation. But I think that's just that conversation with the distributor and what we're coming out with on, that's the uniqueness of our brand.
Yeah. And I would say, our perspective or our philosophy on consistency is maybe not consistency in what's in the can, but consistency of quality of what's in the can. That every time you drink a Wiley Roots beer, we really aim to have that be something that consistently wows people, consistently is of high quality and meets our expectations of things that we find, interesting and worth, worth exchanging, hard-earned dollars for. So.
But it would help if I learned how to unmute myself off this thing.
Good job, Nick.
Yeah, thanks. I believe, Dan, I'm going to pass it back to you because you have another question.
Yeah, I do. So it's not often we have a Southwestern brewery on here. So it kind of made my day to see you guys coming on here. So this is more of a south of a Denver brewing question. And I totally expect a homer type of answer, so don't take that the wrong way. I totally expect it. But where do you feel like Denver falls into brewing wise with the other Southwestern cities? You have a lot of breweries, but there are a lot of heavy hitting cities out there as far as beer goes, like Flagstaff, Albuquerque, even Salt Lake. Where do you feel Denver falls into the whole picture as far as beer brewing goes in our area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that with having the Brewers Association headquartered in Colorado, albeit over the course of the last couple of years, it's been really hard for the Brewers Association to create, the level of draw that was there in years prior. What I would say is that, having GABF in Denver and having things like the Craft Brewers Conference hosted in Denver over the course of a number of years, even since, we've been we've been in the industry, that creates a level of spotlight on Denver and the surrounding areas in terms of, the breweries that exist within that space. And so because of that, I think that really puts an onus on hey, if we're going to be bringing, this many people to Denver metro area for the Great American Beer Festival, you definitely want to be able to stand out among the crowd, kind of thing, in terms of where people typically get their beer from. So I don't know if it's necessarily a homer question to say that I think Denver's beer scene is one of the premier in the nation, but I think that as people kind of come to Denver, they try the different breweries around Denver and surrounding areas. They also take those experiences back home with them and start to a degree. They start holding their local spots accountable to it. Of, hey, like, this was interesting. Go do this. Which ends up being a level of competition, right? That markets in the Southwest, whether it be Phoenix, that market is absolutely blowing up. And even, LA County and San Diego beer scene is incredible. Love seeing that Utah is starting to have a little bit more attention paid to it as well, in the Salt Lake area. So, I think in terms of ranking, I don't know that I could necessarily plant a flag on a ranking, but I think that, those influences are definitely there. So.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you. Ken, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right. Before we get into the final questions, I want to talk about this last beer that I'm drinking because I think after the show, because I need to get a glass for it, I left a little bit of the Hellas, and I still have the Mean Beans barrel aged. So we got Imperial Stout bourbon barrel with coffee and caramel. So not too many adjuncts, but enough to where I'm enjoying it. Would this make a good black and tan, you think?
Oh man, I think that there are other beers better suited to make a black and tan.
I feel like maybe it's because I've just been out of the game for so long that I just want to drink everything. Before I stopped drinking for 6 months, I went to Maine and I went to Vermont, and I had nearly the entire fridge filled with beer, and that beer is still there. So I have Oktoberfest that I need to drink. There might be some pumpkin beers in there that I need to drink.
You can just pour those. Don't even bother.
Dan, I know how much you love pumpkin beers. I make sure every time I drink one, I tag you, I text you, I call you. I send you an iPhone just so I can FaceTime you because I just know how much you love the pumpkin beers. We're going to be kind of closing up this podcast here soon. Everyone's going to have the opportunity to ask you a final question. But real quick, again, with this beer, the Mean Beans, what kind of coffee is in it? And what's like the reasoning behind the artwork? Because the artwork looks like a giant spider that would be fighting Godzilla with laser eyes. I have no idea what I'm looking at.
If you look really, really closely, the spider is actually a coffee bean.
The spider is a coffee bean. So I've got it. If you're not listening, or if you're listening to the podcast, you of course can check us out on our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/BetterOnDraft. There we go. We got it in focus. So apparently this is a coffee bean. I don't know if I would have caught that. I'm not going to lie.
What's also kind of fun about that, if you look at the color scheme is very much, heavily green influenced. And the city that the coffee bean spider is seeking to overtake, it's actually Seattle. So
is that a Starbucks slight? Is that what we're going for? Seattle's best coffee?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay.
But it plays into the tongue-in-cheek aspects of some of our marketing and labeling and just how we kind of create the comic book of beer in our minds. So.
All right, well, let's get to it. It's final question time. We're going to start with Wendy. Wendy, what is your final question for this great duo here?
So I have noticed that you have won a number of medals at the Great American Beer Festival. And I noticed that the first one was actually in 2013. What was it like to earn a medal so early in your progress of the brewery?
Oh man.
Because I think it was the first category, right?
It was the first category.
Yeah, and the bronze was the first medal awarded. So it was the first category, the first medal awarded. Literally, I remember saying, somebody stole our beer name. Because I couldn't comprehend that, among our peers, our brand new peers, that, something that we made was at that level. So it was very, very special.
Yeah, I would echo those comments that, that was the fifth batch of beer that I had made commercially. Ended up being submitted to Great American Beer Festival and came away with that very first bronze medal. So I would also say the experience of having no clue what the hell to do with a medal when you win it, that was very special too. That medals and participation in GABF and pouring at the festival, it's great as long as you kind of approach that with your marketing hat on. But approaching it with a brewer's hat was a very different experience, especially just at that point in time, I was still working my day job. Miranda was our only employee in the tap room.
Brewing on a 7-barrel system. It was daunting to try to. We couldn't capitalize on it. Plain and simple, we couldn't capitalize on it. So, yeah.
So you didn't just wear it everywhere you went for like the first 6 months?
Oh, I still do that. Yeah.
We definitely we have a nice display and all those things. But
yeah, there was a point where like coming out of the shower, Miranda's like, take that damn thing off.
Nick, what is your final question?
All right. It's going to be a question for each of you. Starting with Kyle, what was that first beer? I don't recall you saying that first beer that you homebrewed that you enjoyed. And then for Miranda, you said Chimay Blue was your first beer. What was your second beer? Do you recall?
Ooh, that's a great question.
You answer first. I'll think for a second.
So that very first beer that I brewed, so the homebrew shop that I went to at that point in time, they've since shuttered their doors, which is like a little bit of sad memories for me. But that very first beer that I brewed was a kit that they put together, the employees of the homebrew shop put together. And it was called Easy Bicycle. And it was a certain bicycle themed beer that it was designed after.
We're talking about Fat Tire. I mean, we can say it.
Like, I kind of know where this is going here.
It was the homebrew kit. That wasn't. Yeah, we just bought the kit.
Yeah. I have not since made Easy Bicycle as a professional brewer. So
are we going to see that on tap next week?
April Fool's has already passed us. So yeah, it was a Fat Tire clone that very first beer. So
okay, all right.
I do not remember my second beer. I do remember the first beer that I liked. That definitely stands out to me. The Hefeweizen at Dry Dock.
Yeah.
Because most of the breweries that we went to, the whatever 60 or something that I took him to, I drove and I tried everything, but I didn't get past a sample. And so that was the first beer that I started ordering on my own, and then it just took off from there.
All right. Dan, go ahead.
Yep. This question is for both of you too. I want to jump to collaborations, thinking about this Ren House collab. Who is a brewery that you have not collaborated with yet that you would like to?
That's a really good question. I'm going to let you go first.
I think it'd be really difficult to narrow it. I'll try, but
yeah.
Do you have one that comes to mind?
Oh, goodness. I think just because we've talked about it so much and we've tried to figure out the logistics of making it happen, and they're busy, we're busy, is probably Ouzelfinch. I think that they make some really interesting, really cool things. And we just have yet to really make the logistics and everything work in terms of being able to get out there and brew with them. So, or vice versa, have them come out here and brew. So, I think that'll happen. But yeah,
trying to decide. I'll just pick one that it's in Colorado. Since one of my first loves when I did start to get into sour beers was like mixed culture fruited beers. So I would have to say Casey. They've always been one of my favorite breweries, and that would be really, really cool.
All right, and my final question. How do you guys unplug? How do you guys, you exit the brewery, you're not drinking beer. What do you do to unplug and get away from the brewery?
That's a great question. What's funny and has kind of come full circle is Miranda's been telling me that I need to find a hobby. And I said, I got to be damn careful with those because you know how the last one worked out.
True.
I really enjoy cooking at home. I just got, it was last spring, I got a Blackstone and finally got it hooked up to natural gas. So I don't have to fill up propane tanks, anything like that. So
he's been doing his own mustard.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly culinary related for Kyle. I would still say I don't think he has any hobbies. I'm definitely I have so many hobbies that are not work related. I love playing video games. I love to read. I'm an Anglophile. I love anything British. I love movies. I have so many things that I just am really, really passionate about. So it's not necessarily difficult for me to unwind.
Do you say that he needs to get a hobby because you have all of these hobbies and he's just kind of hanging around and you don't have the opportunity? Or
no, I definitely still do it. I still do those hobbies.
Good.
I know that his will never be mine. I'm
really good at leaving you alone when you're plugged into Skyrim.
I mean, I have like this board game that I don't, Wendy, if you've ever played Mansions of Madness, and I'm just, I'll like wash my hands 5 times before I play and hand paint the characters, and I'm a really big nerd. So my hobbies are not necessarily enjoyed by Kyle. So it's more like find a hobby so I can do my thing. We do have some hobbies together, I will say.
Yeah, we like to travel.
We do like to travel, yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. Wiley Roots out of Greely, Colorado. They can find you online on Instagram, Facebook. Of course, they can go to your brewery. Where are you guys distroed? I know I saw it in a bunch of places in Arizona. What other states?
We're in 11 now. So Colorado, Arizona, California, Washington, Oregon, Wyoming, Illinois. Did I say Virginia? Nope. Virginia, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin.
I feel like you skipped one specific state that's near a lot of those states. It kind of looks like a mitten. Almost
we
like
have not made it.
Mitten on a mitten.
Yeah.
So
we understand that. We understand that Michigan's hard to get into. Could we maybe even go for closer states?
Wisconsin, Wisconsin's probably the closest, right?
Illinois would still be closer because
Illinois would be closer. Okay,
that big Lake Michigan in between. So you got to drive down into Indiana, into Illinois, and up to Wisconsin. So that's going to do it. Episode 286, Better on Draft podcast. In the chat, somebody said, "Hey, we need you in South Carolina." So we have people that are wanting you in other states too. Go check them out, Wiley Roots. If you see them on the shelf, obviously go grab it. These beers were amazing, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Good luck on your Easter egg hunt to everyone that is listening. The show should be live so that while you're running around, you could tell everyone to listen to this episode while they're roaming the streets of Greely, Colorado, looking for those Easter eggs. That's going to do it. Better on Draft 286. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Peace.
Thank you.